So after I completed my Appalachian Trail thru hike last year, I was very transparent on exactly how much money I spent on my thru hike. So with all that, the total of my 2021 Appalachian Trail thru hike is $5,832. People were very interested in that video, but that video was very broad. I did tell you how much money I spent in total, and then I broke it down into different months and different categories. But the purpose for this video is to really get into the specifics on what I was spending daily. So I'm going to take a week out of my thru hike, and I'm going to go day by day and show you exactly how much money I spent each day and what I was spending that money on. That way you can see exactly how much things cost on the Appalachian Trail, like hostels, shuttles, resupplies, restaurants, and so on. So I started the AT on February 22nd, 2021, but for this video I'm going to take the week from March 1st to March 7th. That way I'm already 80 miles into my thru hike, and you're gonna see me cover the distance between like Franklin, North Carolina and Fontana Dam, which are both major spots on the AT, so I'm sure you're familiar with those. So starting off on March 1st, I actually spent $0. I woke up in my tent at the Muskrat Creek Shelter. I hiked all day, hiked up and over Standing Indian Mountain, and then went to bed that night in my tent at the Betty Creek tent site. So all I did that day was hike. I didn't spend any money, so $0, and I'm happy with that. On March 2nd, I woke up at the Betty Creek tent site. That day I hiked 12 miles up and over Elbert Mountain and down into a winding stair gap. That is where I got shuttled to Chica and Sunset's hostel. That hostel was $50. So every hostel's different, but I'll share with you what that $50 hostel stay covered. So it covered my transportation to and from the trail to the hostel. It also covered any transportation I needed from the hostel into town and back. It covered my bed, and it also covered laundry. So whenever you go into town, it's kind of like a money trap and you end up spending a lot of money. This day I went and got lunch at a restaurant and spent $20. I also went to a gear shop and spent $6 on more fuel for my stove. And I also went to the grocery store and spent $12 on resupply food. So in total on March 2nd, I ended up spending $88. So when I woke up on March 3rd, I had a lot of foot pain. So I asked the hostel if they had room for me to stay another night, and they did. So I ended up zeroing at Chica and Sunset's hostel. So that's another $50 for another night there. I went back to the grocery store and spent more money on food for my resupply and spent another $18. I walked around town a little bit and spent $6 on a really nice cup of coffee. And I also went back to the same restaurant that I was at the day before and spent $23 on lunch. The cost of taking a 0 day really adds up quick, especially when you book 2 nights at the same hostel and you're also going out to dinner and to restaurants. So the total that I spent March 3rd in Franklin, North Carolina was $97. So March 4th, I woke up at Chica and Sunset's hostel and I ended up spending $6 on snacks. So a lot of times hostels will have snacks available, little things you can grab and pay for when you leave. I think over my course of like the 2 days there, I bought a couple ice cream sandwiches and candy bars. So my total that I had to pay before I leave was $6. And so they shuttled me back to the trail. That price was included with my hostel stay. And I ended up hiking 18 miles that day to a stealth spot and didn't spend any more money. So my total for that whole day was just $6. So March 5th was a big day. I woke up at that stealth spot and hiked 9 miles into the Nantahala Outdoor Center, or the NOC, and that's one of my favorite spots on the whole Appalachian Trail, so I was super pumped. I had to stay there. So the prices added up. So that morning when I woke up, I went to deflate my pillow and I pulled the nozzle a little too hard and it broke off, so broke my pillow. When I was at the NOC, I went to buy another pillow. They only had one and it was $40. While I was in the gear shop getting my pillow, I also noticed that they had the new Jetboil stashes in stock. It's a brand new stove that just came out. It was lighter than the stove I already had and I really wanted it, so I ended up spending $116 on a new stove. This is a piece of gear that I tried to buy before my thru-hike, but it was so brand new I couldn't find it anywhere, so it should have been a before trail expense, but it ended up being an on trail expense and I bought it there. Also in the gear shop, I love cooking backpacking meals, specifically like freeze-dried pasta. I crave that all the time out on trail, so I bought one of those for $10. This gear shop is also a really good spot to get your Smokies permit printed, and that cost $20. The NOC also has a really nice restaurant right on the river, so I went and got lunch there and paid $21. There's a lot of different options when it comes to lodging at the NOC. They have really cheap and minimal bunk rooms that will do the trick, but I opted for a hotel room. I just wanted a little bit more comfort and more privacy, so the hotel room that I got there was $105. And also, before I went to bed, I went back to the restaurant and I ordered off the kids menu. I only spent $12 on dinner. So altogether, this was one of my most expensive days on the whole Appalachian Trail. The total came to $324. On March 6th, I woke up from the NOC and hiked on 16 miles. I ended up camping at the Brown Fork Shelter and I didn't spend any money that day. On March 7th, from the Brown Fork Gap Shelter, I hiked on about 11 miles to Fontana Damn Village. When I got to the road crossing, there's a marina there where you can do a little bit of a resupply. I took a $3 shuttle to the resort where I split a hotel room with some friends, so I ended up spending $45. And there's also a gas station near the resort where you can do another resupply. So between the resupply at the marina and the resupply at the gas station, I spent $27. And that $27 worth of food was gonna take me all 4 days through the Smoky Mountains. And that's going to take us to the end of the week, so if we add up everything that I spent on the Appalachian Trail the first week of March, it comes to $590. However, Trail Angels actually covered my costs for both nights of me staying at Chica and Sunset's hostel, so that's actually $100 off the total, so that helps a little bit. So my total that week ended up actually being $490. Now, everyone's gonna have an opinion when it comes to spending money on the Appalachian Trail. People are gonna say that I spent way too much money, and then also people are gonna say if they were gonna hike the AT one day, they would spend even more money than me. So everyone has different opinions, and that's okay. We're allowed to, you know, hike our own hike and spend money on what we want to. And that's the good thing about the Appalachian Trail. It can really be as bougie as you want it or as minimal as you want it. I'm personally not the type of person that likes buying really cheap food and sleeping in my tent every night. I really enjoy the time I spend in the towns and at restaurants and hostels. That, for me, makes the Appalachian Trail so much fun. So it's really just personal preference. So this week that I just went over on the AT was obviously really early on and in the south. But if you guys are interested, I'd love to do this same video, but maybe 3 months into my thru hike and in the north, and see how those compare with each other. So I just want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.